Hi, I'm David Templeton. Welcome to a Strings Guide video presentation about building an artistically and commercially successful chamber ensemble. I'm joined today by the members of the Del Sol Quartet, violinist Kate Stenberg and Rick Shinozaki, violist Charlton Lee, and cellist Catherine Bates Williams. Today we'll be discussing what advice this quartet, formed in 1992, has about playing in a duo or trio setting. Where does one find a suitable pianist? How should you audition and evaluate them as a chamber partner? What does a string player need to know about playing with a piano in terms of blending and balancing? Well, hello again.
Hello.
Hi.
Many of you, in addition to playing in this quartet, play in other duos or maybe even trios. So let's talk about that. First of all, where does one find a suitable pianist? What do you do?
Marry one. Or have a mother that's one. That's kind of the inside joke, because every member of the quartet currently and in the past has either been married to a pianist or has had a mother who's a pianist.
Oh, that is true. I'm also married to a pianist.
I'm not married to one, but my mother is one, but not on this coast. I happened to, when I moved to San Francisco, my roommate was a pianist, and we ended up being both best friends and just amazing collaborators. So she and I still occasionally work together, and just that relationship has been quite beautiful. So.
My mother and I were first collaborators.
Oh.
We were very young,
Yeah.
but she played with me just all the time growing up, and she's a piano teacher in the area. But now I play with Charlton's wife, Ava Maria Zimmerman, and we just made a solo CD together. So that is a solo duo CD.
A solo CD together.
Well, scratch that.
Well, it sounds like in one way or another you all come with your own accompanists or pianists. But how would you recommend somebody audition and evaluate a pianist as a chamber partner?
Just play with lots
Yeah,
of people.
exactly.
As a musician, we're all surrounded by different musicians in different contexts. So if you're looking for a partner, be like, hey, let's read some music together, or hey, let's play Brahms Sonata together and do a concert. And if you play one piece together and it's something that is exciting to continue, then you continue working with that person. If it's not, then there's a lot of pianists running around, so find another one and try that person out. I think the chemistry is a little bit different because it's one-on-one than the chemistry of a quartet, but there is an amazing chemistry there too. Perhaps that's even more like the intimate relationship of a marriage or something, where it's a very direct kind of musical relationship. And so finding the right partner for long-term kind of work is really, I think, exciting and valuable and important.
For those people who are starting out, I would say that there are some pianists who are phenomenal sight readers, and other ones that are not, but are willing to put in the work to make a piece really shine. Sometimes they're really great sight readers because that's a really special gift. They're often highly in demand, and they may not have the time to actually work hard on a piece together with you. So it really depends on what you're looking for.
What would you say a string player should know about playing with a piano in terms of blending and balancing the instruments and the parts?
For me, when I play in a piano trio, we haven't talked about that, but I play differently in a piano trio than in a string quartet. It's subtly more of an us against them, meaning the piano and the pianist, the strings against the piano entity. And I would use, so it's a little more competitive, and I would use more vibrato, maybe a thicker vibrato, so that there's more of a distinction between the piano sound and the violin sound. I mean, as much as I would try, I cannot compete on sound against the pianist, but I have sustain and vibrato. So those are the tools I would use along with the cellist, and we would work together in in a competition, so to speak, in a good way.
I mean, in a sense, maybe we should open it up to just like any type of collaborator, because adding a pianist or another musician who happens to be a pianist is simply adding a collaborator, and the rules are basically the same, no matter what type, whether it's a didgeridoo player or somebody playing electronic stuff or whatnot. You're incorporating them into your. I mean, since we are the core ensemble, and if you're adding one extra person, then in a sense you're bringing them into your world. And for us, because we work in a very democratic fashion, that means opening it up to one extra person, and then sort of dealing with or kind of renegotiating the dynamics that way. Obviously, because we spend so much time together, there's a lot of jargon that we have that somebody else might not understand. So sometimes we have to speak plain English a little bit, but beyond that.
I think the same rules working in a quartet, where you have to step into another person's shoes, is very applicable when you work with someone else. So if I'm working with a pianist, I need to say, how does a piano work in terms of articulation, in terms of sound production? How do I best match that and also get the pianist to try to match me? Where can we meet? A piano, the tuning is set and it's tempered. So as string players, we often use intonation expressively. So you have to have that sort of fight of how do we play in tune with the piano who's tempered and set intonation. And I mean, that's a little bit more on the advanced side, but it's something you really have to think, like that D is going to be this D always, regardless of what key we're in. So does that affect how I play or not? And kind of renegotiating some of the the rules of like, this is how I would play cello in a string quartet when I'm matching other string players. How would it be to try to match a piano? How would it be to try to match a didgeridoo? In terms of types of sounds of production, types of, and all, sort of everything. I think
Again, that goes to flexibility, because
Yeah.
at one time we played a piece with a piano that was in just intonation. So
Right.
that throws out all the other rules that we've had as far as playing with a piano and how we adjust as a quartet to match the piano. But this time these notes were tuned in such a way that we were actually tuning exactly with the piano in this just intonation. So that was really remarkable. So the flexibility, and of course just the overall collaboration being has that person is one with us. We're bringing them in and we're becoming a group together.
I mean, in some ways, I think the cello often has the most role shift. If you're working with a bass instrument that's even lower, then all of a sudden the cellist is no longer the bass.
yes.
And I think they take on a middle voice role, and I think that is a pretty big personality shift.
Schubert-Trout quintet is one of the weirdest things to play, because suddenly the bass is what normally is the cello, and I become the viola. So all the writing is completely different, and it's almost like adopting someone else's, like, oh, here, we all like shift over and we like I take his hat. And it's I think knowing your role and being flexible and just being really aware and able to kind of make changes.
Are there any other ways that a duo or trio differ from a quartet in terms of the group dynamic, selection of repertoire, anything?
The process is, I think, of decision making is a lot easier, because you just have fewer voices in the mix. The more voices you have in the mix, the more challenging it's going to be to get through decisions with any organization who's going to run democratically.
Yeah.
So I found working with my pianists, or whichever pianists I've been playing with through the years, that process of choosing repertoire is actually quite easy compared to the way it is with the quartet, because it's so much more complicated. 4 voices.
I think for duos and or piano trios, it does tend to be more about individual personalities. Is that there are many successful piano trios that are made up of sort of individual soloists. Duos for sure. I mean, most quote-unquote like professional duos are really professional soloists with some fabulous pianists behind them. or Emmanuel Ax and Yo-Yo Ma, for example. I mean, and so the quartet, I think, starts taking a group dynamic. So you don't think of, if you think of Emerson Quartet, you don't think of all the individual members. You think of the quartet as a group. When you think of Del Sol, you think of it as a group rather than, Kate and Rick and Charlton and Catherine. And I think that dynamic really comes into play. The piano trio repertoire is much more soloistic. It's much more about here's the violin and here's the cello. And so those individual voices get heard a lot more.
So, as succinctly as possible, what's your best advice for a young string player who's preparing to venture into chamber music for the first time?
Have fun.
Have fun?
If they're just for the first time, yeah, enjoy yourself. It's the best. The most amazing experience.
If you can't find venues, create your own, and as much as possible.
Well, if you're an amateur and you just want to enjoy it for yourself, you don't need a venue. Do you?
A venue can be your friend's living room.
I'd say find the people you most enjoy playing with and play with them a lot and find out if you can create something together. Find out if you can all get on the same page with your lives and your work schedules. And just, I think the key is to find who you enjoy playing with.
Start with a piece that really excites you. Obviously you have to choose something that's within your level, but I think it should be something that really, you get really excited about, you really want to know about, you really want to explore, because that will be sort of a source and a goal to, even if there's hard things or, personnel problems, ideally you're playing with people you love too. But if there's something that really brings you together that's incredibly exciting, then everything else flows from there.